Hello Cloud Gurus and welcome to this lecture. In this lecture, we're going to go ahead and register a domain name. The easiest way to learn anything with AWS is to start using it. So we're going to register a domain name and then we're going to go in and start looking at all the different Route 53 routing policies. And what we're going to do is we're going to use this domain name to try out the different routing policies. So in this lab, we're going to go ahead and register a domain name and then we're going to go in and set up 3 EC2 instances. Each one is going to be in a different area in the world. And then we'll be ready to start learning about the different Route 53 routing policies, and then we'll actually be able to go in and start testing them. So this is a lab and you will need to log into the AWS console. Okay, so here I am in the AWS console. I'm going to go over to services. Now you'll find Route 53 under networking. So if you just scroll down, here it is, networking and content delivery, and you go ahead and click on Route 53. So the very first thing we're going to do before we get started with the Route 53 is we're going to go in and we're going to register a domain name. So we're going to go down here and hit domain registration. Now, get started with the Route 53 is we're going to go in and we're going to register a domain name. So we're going to go down here and hit domain registration. Now, domain registration is not free, so do bear that in mind. I'm going to go ahead here and hit register domain. And then you just have to pick a domain name that you want. So I'm going to go ahead and register a domain, something like Hello Cloud Gurus 2019. Let's see if that is available. I'm going to go ahead and check, and it is available. So hellocloudgurus2019.com is available. So I'm going to go ahead and add that to my cart. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll down and hit continue. Now you have to go in and fill out the registrant contact, because that does contain quite a lot of personal information, including my phone number. I'm going to go ahead and fill it all out, and then I'm going to go ahead and hit continue. So I'm just going to pause the video here. Once you've done that, you'll see this screen, and all you need to do is accept the terms and conditions and go ahead and complete your purchase. And that has now been registered. Sometimes domain names can take up to 3 days to complete, so do bear that in mind. But it's normally a lot quicker. It will usually take 1 or 2 hours. And you'll be able to see your domain in here, so we can see hellocloudgurus2019.com. The domain registration is in progress. And if we click on registered domains, we can't yet see it in here, but once that is registered, it will appear here. So I'm just going to pause the video for a couple of hours, and I'm going to wait for this to register. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and refresh the page, and we can now see that the domain registration has been successful, and I can see it in my hosted zone. So if I go in here, this is my hosted zones, and this is where we go in and configure Route 53. We basically go in and add things like A records and C names, etc. So we are going to do this in the next lab, but first what we need to do is we need to go over and provision our EC2 instances. So let's go over to EC2. So right now I'm in the Irish region, and I'm going to go ahead and launch an instance. Now I want you to think about where it is you are. So physically I'm based in London, and I want to use a region that's very close to me because we're going to be looking at latency and then geographical routing as well. So I'm going to pick Ireland. I also want a region that's very far away from me. So Sydney is basically the opposite side of the world. So I'm going to pick Sydney. And then I want somewhere sort of in between. So I'm going to go ahead and pick Ohio. So I'm going to launch into the Ohio region, the Sydney region, and into the Irish region. Now, if you haven't used one of these regions before, you will have to set up a security group and you will have to get your key pair. We're going to use a Bootstrap script, so scroll all the way down. This Bootstrap script is available in the resources section of the course. All it's doing is it's doing a yum update, it's installing Apache, it's making sure Apache restarts if the EC2 instance goes down. It's then starting the Apache service, it's going over to our var www.html directory, and then it's basically making a little web page. And it says, hello Cloud Gurus, this is X web server. And then it's going to output that to index.html. So you will need to change the X to whichever region that you're in. So I'm just going to copy this into my clipboard, going to paste it in here, and I'm going to go ahead and change it. So this is and then Irish web server. And then I'm going to go ahead and add my storage. And if you don't want to watch me go through all this, feel free to skip ahead. I know it can be quite a little bit boring. Just jump ahead to about 6 minutes 30, and that's where we'll cover off my exam tips. So I'm going to add my web DMZ security group, go ahead and hit review and launch, and then I do have access to this key pair. And then the next place I'm going over is to the Sydney region. I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I don't think I've ever used the Sydney region in this account, so I will need to create my own security group and download my key pair. So I'm just going to go over to Sydney. I'm going to go ahead and launch my EC2 instance. I'm going to leave everything as default. Again, I'm going to go to my advanced details. I'm going to paste this in here, and I'm going to change this to the Sydney web server. I'm going to add my storage, leave that as default. I don't need any tags. I'm going to create a new security group, call it Web.DMZ, Web.DMZ, and I'm going to open up port 80 to the world, and there we go. And then I'm going to go ahead and launch that, and I need to create a new key pair. I'll call it my Sydney key. I'm going to download that. And now I'm going to go ahead and launch my instance. So that's launched my instance in Sydney. And then finally, I'm going to go over to the Ohio region. So Ohio. And then I'm going to go ahead and launch my instance in there. So again, I'm going to use Amazon Linux AMI. I don't think I've ever used the Ohio region either. I'm going to put in my bootstrap script, paste it in here. So this is the Ohio web server. Next, I'm going to add my storage, add my tags, add my security groups, create a new security group, web DMZ, web DMZ. Then I'm going to add in port 80, open that up to the world. And I'm going to go ahead and review and launch, and then I'm going to create my new key pair, my Ohio key pair. And there we go, I've launched my third EC2 instance. So we're all set up to do the next few labs. So we got our 3 EC2 instances around the world, and we've registered our domain name. So what are my exam tips? So just remember that you can buy domain names directly with AWS, and then also remember that it can take up to 3 days to register depending on the circumstances. Now, like I said in the DNS 101 lecture, I literally did the exam a couple of weeks ago, and there was no Route 53 questions in there whatsoever. That being said, you cannot be a solutions architect and not know how Route 53 works and how DNS works and the different routing methods. And to be honest, it could have just been my exam. I do try and take them as much as I can. And I've been doing the Solutions Architect Associate exams since 2014. So I've got 5 years of experience in doing this. And there's always, in the last 5 years, there's almost always been Route 53 questions. So you do need to know this for real life. And you probably will need to know this in your exam. But just like I said, the last exam that I sat didn't have any Route 53 questions on it. Maybe it was just a one-off. Anyway, that's it for this lecture, guys. If you've got the time, please join me in the next lecture where we're going to cover off the different types of routing policies available to us with Route 53.